You and thank you so much for being with us here in Morning at NTV. I am Priscilla Regina, and our tech talk this morning is going to be focusing on disability and inclusion strategy development for Uganda. Now, of course, as I do introduce my guest later on, just to give you the background of where we come from to have this conversation this morning. When you look at Ugandan policies, they do highlight a rights-based government disability agenda and a strengthening of the policy framework on disability inclusion in education and employment. However, the gaps in implementing, enforcing and monitoring policy as well as legislation are still staggering. Now, research in sub-Saharan Africa does show that with the right support, people with disabilities can definitely achieve economic success, among other things. Now, to seek the stance for this conversation, we are joined by a board member with the National Council of Persons with Disabilities, and that is Mr. James Mwesige. Good morning to you, Mr. James Mwesige.
Good morning, Priscilla.
How are you?
Surviving.
Okay. Oh, why do you say surviving?
You see, life is about trying to live what it is. You don't force yourself on a number of things, so you have to keep on struggling.
Yeah. All right. And I know that as one who is with disability and also representing and the voice of those with disabilities, there are a number of struggles that you are facing on a national level as far as policy and frameworks are concerned. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of that, the National Council of Persons with Disabilities, in that regard, it is a public institution. It was established back in 2003 and then re-established again by the Persons with Disabilities Act of 2020. What prompted this and what has been the impact of that act so far on the agenda of promotion of inclusion for people with disabilities?
Yeah, thanks, Priscilla. Good morning, viewers as well. You know, Priscilla, to understand and respond to your question, you need to understand where we have come from as persons with disabilities. You know, when you look at the law, the definition of disability is such that a person who has an impairment, when he or she interacts with the environment which has barriers, that relationship is what leads to one's ability or inability to perform as expected by the individual or by the public. So, to deal with issues of disability, then you have to look at which barriers in the environment that you need to remove. In Uganda, disability is where it is because it's a journey. It's a journey. When the NRM government came into power, when you look at the 10-point program, they were not talking about persons with disabilities. They were talking about women, they were talking about the youth, they were talking about other issues. But as people who were also participating and engaging in some activities of the liberation, we understood that the best way to be part of this process was actually to demand to be part of that process through participation. So, and that's why in the 1995 Constitution, there are provisions to do with respect and dignity of persons with disabilities, recognizing sign language as one of the languages in Uganda. And Article 30, 32 and 35 talks of government is being required to do everything possible to reduce the imbalances that people with disabilities experience.
Okay.
And to also accord affirmative action to persons with disabilities in respect to removing those barriers to facilitate participation so that disabled persons can be like any other Ugandan.
So when you look at the Act of 2020, it was looking at particular barriers that were removed in order to establish that act. And that being said, 4 years down the road, have those barriers actually been removed?
You know, these provisions in the laws, various laws, the Constitution, Local Government Act, Equal Opportunities Act, and the Persons with Disabilities Act, all of them arise from those basic provisions in the Constitution, like I said. And their being in place in itself is a recognition and a very big achievement to do with the rights of persons with disabilities. You know, you can talk, you can say all sorts of things you would want to say. But if what you are saying is not captured by the law and not reflected in the law, describing what is it that needs to be done,
right,
then that cannot be a right.
Okay.
So the fact that these laws exist gives us the foundation, gives us the base with which we can demand, we can talk, and prescribe. You know, we can argue and advocate for a number of things.
And yet,
now,
yeah.
so that in itself is a very big success. But having those laws in place alone is not enough. It requires the action of government, it requires the action of other actors like NGOs, you know, organization of disabled persons. It requires the actions of local government entities, districts, sub-counties. It requires the central government together with governments, because as you realize, this is a bit a cross-cutting thing. It touches on a number of things to constitute what you may call a human being. So there are many issues, and therefore we have to have capacity at a number of levels, but also we have to have resources available to deal with the issues of inclusion.
Let's talk about the element of inclusion,
yes,
where
please.
You're seated right now. I do know that you are grieved by the fact that you still not yet feel the inclusion, especially in supporting structures to be able to accommodate persons with disabilities. Where are these elements actually loudest as far as structures are concerned, from government to private, and what would be the resolutions around them?
You know, when you look at the Act, for example, the Person with Disabilities Act of 2020, lists a number of functions that need to be fulfilled. But funding is a very big challenge. Funding to do with hiring the right people, financing the right activities, reaching out to the right people, both at the national, at the district and sub-county levels, so that everybody is on board and acts as a team towards realizing our intentions. Now, in terms of the challenges, just like you were saying, we need everybody to be on board. Government needs to realize that if you invest in people with disabilities, in the areas of education, in the areas of training, skills training, all these programs that the government is carrying out, if you provide for their involvement, their participation in this program, and learn from the process, and enable them further, then you would have done a great job. And at all levels. So be it the PS of various ministries need to understand what needs to be done in as far as disability is concerned. The technical people, the programmers, parents, head teachers, principals of institutions, and the technical schools, all of them have to be brought on board. And it's not easy. It requires commitment, it requires political will and administrative will to reach out, to go out and say, let us help these people to deal with the issues they say they are faced with.
All right. Well, the categories you've mentioned will say that they have the will to do, all the support, offer all the support that they can to persons with disabilities. But of course, as earlier alluded, you say that it all comes down to funding. Now, let's talk about funding. As far as the budget is concerned, how inclusive is it of people with disabilities currently in the financial year 2023-2024?
There is RAPEX going on, and the purpose of RAPEX is to rationalize. So RAPEX has in a way affected us because our budgets have been cut as council, and I think also the budgets of many other entities of government in the process of wanting to see how do we take this process forward. And we agree with the government because there is wastage when you look at it. But this wastage, management of this wastage should not compromise the bigger picture of what we want to see at the end of the day, in as far as the lives of persons with disabilities concerns. Yes, so we are involved. We have been requested to submit our opinions, about the budget papers and all that. But like I said, there are those challenges, there are those issues. And my call to government and to responsible persons is to involve us as much as possible. The issue actually is not even the cake. What is important is that that size that is available, how are we willing to share it to create the desired impact on the lives of the people of this country?
Okay. All right. What has been your interaction and engagement with the other MDs by and large in opening up their eyes to realize that they have to be inclusive of a sect of people such as those with disabilities? I guess public case example would be the parish development model that does give a percentage mandated to be given to persons with disabilities. And so starting off with that one, what has been the conception of the targeted group or audience in consuming that PDM, utilizing it and returning it to government funding?
Now, when you look at how the council is constituted, the council or the board, as it were, is constituted of persons with disabilities from various entities, but also technical people from government, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Labor, and all of these are meant to provide input to policies that a council is supposed to come up with to deal with the issues at hand. So in terms of involving other sectors, I think they are there. It's a question of managing the process of the involvement and participation to deal with these matters.
Right.
Now, about PDM, we are happy about government putting aside resources and commitments to finance the economic activities of persons with disabilities. And in some areas where people have understood the message of 10% of the resources available in a given parish, it has worked. Okay. Yeah, but in others it has not, because people are questioning. I said, this is a loan. How can people with disabilities pay back given the challenges that they face? And the argument is, try us out and see. Because when you try us, what we learn, what we come across as challenges, are not issues of simply sitting down and saying, oh, these are challenges, ignore them. No, those challenges are there to manage so that going forward, at the end of the day, we can see people with disability participating in these programs.
Okay.
But